The restaurant smelled like old money and newer lies. I could taste both in the air, something floral and expensive, mixing with the sharp bite of aged whiskey and leather, the kind of place where the silverware probably cost more than my entire month's rent. I shouldn't have been there. My roommate had practically shoved me out the door, insisting that this blind date would be different, that Marcus seemed normal from his profile, that I needed to stop hiding in our cramped apartment like some wounded animal. She was wrong. I knew she was wrong the moment I stepped through those heavy mahogany doors. The hostess looked at me the way people in expensive places always did, a quick scan from my discount store dress to my worn flats, her smile tightening just enough to let me know I didn't belong. I clutched my purse tighter, the fake leather cracking under my fingers. Reservation? Her voice was silk wrapped around steel. I'm meeting someone. Marcus Chen? Table for two? She glanced at her computer screen, manicured nails clicking against the keys. Mr. Chen hasn't arrived yet. I can seat you? Or you'd prefer to wait at the bar? The bar meant standing, meant being even more visible in my cheap dress. I'll sit, thank you. She led me through the dining room, and I felt every eye that turned my way. The carpet was so thick my heels sank into it. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbow prisms across white tablecloths. Everyone here looked like they'd been born knowing which fork to use, which wine to order, how to exist in spaces like this without their hands shaking. Here you are. She gestured to a corner table, partially hidden by a decorative screen of bamboo and frosted glass. I slid into the chair, grateful for the semi-privacy. At least I could hide my nervousness here, could check my phone without feeling like the entire restaurant was watching me wait for a man who might not even show up. 20 minutes crawled by. I'd already read the menu 3 times, memorized the wine list I couldn't afford, and checked my phone so many times the battery dropped to 60%. The waiter had filled my water glass twice, his pity becoming more obvious with each visit. Marcus wasn't coming. Of course he wasn't. This was just like the last time and the time before that. Men took one look at me, tired eyes, clothes from clearance racks, the kind of exhaustion that came from working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. And they found excuses. I was reaching for my purse, ready to slink out before the humiliation became completely unbearable when I saw him. Not Marcus. Definitely not Marcus. A man had entered through a private entrance I hadn't even noticed, flanked by 2 others in dark suits that screamed security. But it wasn't the guards that made my breath catch. It was him. He moved through the restaurant like he owned it. And maybe he did. Tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair swept back from a face that belonged in magazines or movies. Young, maybe early 30s, but carrying himself with the kind of confidence that had nothing to do with age and everything to do with power. His suit probably cost more than my car. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. A watch caught the light on his wrist, and even from across the room, I could tell it was worth more than I'd make in a year. He said something to the hostess, who practically bowed. One of his guards scanned the room with the kind of alertness that made my spine prickle. These weren't just bodyguards. These were men who knew how to hurt people. I looked away quickly, focusing on my water glass. Men like that didn't notice women like me. I was furniture, wallpaper, part of the background noise of their expensive lives. But then I heard footsteps approaching. Heavy, confident, moving toward my little corner. Sorry I'm late. The voice wrapped around me like smoke, deep, accented with something I couldn't quite place. Mediterranean maybe, or Eastern European. It carried the kind of authority that made people straighten their spines without thinking. I looked up. He was standing at my table, not near it, at it. Looking down at me with eyes so dark they were almost black, framed by thick lashes that should have been illegal on a man. This close, I could smell him. Something expensive and masculine, cedar and citrus and danger. My voice came out as a squeak. I cleared my throat, tried again. I think there's been a mistake. One corner of his mouth lifted. Not quite a smile. Something more predatory. Is there? He pulled out the chair across from me and sat down before I could protest. His movements were fluid, economical, like a panther deciding to rest. The 2 guards positioned themselves nearby, one by the decorative screen, one with a clear view of the entrance. Both of them watching everything except us. I'm waiting for someone, I managed, my heart hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. A blind date. Marcus Chen. He leaned back in his chair, completely at ease in a way I would never be. And I was supposed to meet someone at table 12. It seems we're both in the wrong place, table 12. I glanced at the small number on our table. 14. Oh, God. The hostess had seated me at the wrong table, and he'd assumed. I should go, I said, starting to rise. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to stay. It wasn't a request. The single word carried enough weight to make me sink back into my chair without thinking. He studied me with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight, like he was cataloging every detail, every flaw, every secret I'd ever kept. You're nervous, he observed. I'm embarrassed, I corrected, trying to find some shred of dignity. I'm clearly in your seat, and I've probably ruined your evening, and I should really... What's your name? The question cut through my rambling. I blinked at him. Why? Because I'd like to know the name of the woman sitting at my table. Another almost smile. Unless you prefer I keep calling you the nervous girl in the corner. Heat flooded my cheeks. Emma Richards. Emma. He said it slowly, like he was tasting it. I'm Damien. No last name. Just Damien. Like that was all I needed to know. All I deserved to know. Well, Damien, I really should let you have your table back. My date clearly isn't coming anyway, so... Your date is an idiot. The words were matter of fact, delivered without inflection, but they hit me somewhere in the chest, made something flutter that I didn't want to examine too closely. You don't know anything about him, I said quietly. I know he left you waiting, alone, in a place like this. His eyes darkened. That tells me everything I need to know. A waiter appeared as if summoned by telepathy. Mr. Volkov, your usual Volkov. The name registered somewhere in the back of my mind, set off alarm bells I couldn't quite identify. Yes, and for the lady. He looked at me expectantly. Oh no, I really can't. You haven't eaten. It wasn't a question. The menu is prefixed tonight. Choose something, Emma. The way he said my name made my stomach flip. Like it was his now. Like I was. I looked at the prices and felt dizzy. $40 for an appetizer, $60 for the main course. I couldn't afford this. I couldn't afford to be here, sitting across from this man who radiated danger and money in equal measure. I'm not hungry, I lied. His eyes narrowed slightly. When was the last time you ate? This morning. Another lie. It had been yesterday afternoon, a granola bar between my shifts at the diner and the late-night cleaning job. He said something in another language to the waiter, rapid and commanding. The waiter nodded and disappeared. I ordered for you, Damien said. You'll eat. You can't just... I can. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and suddenly the space between us felt impossibly small. And I will. You look like you're about to fall over, Emma. When was the last time someone took care of you? The question was so unexpected, so intimate, that I couldn't breathe for a moment. No one had asked me that. Not in years. Not since my mother died and I'd been left alone to figure out how to survive in a world that didn't care if I drowned. That's none of your business, I whispered. Perhaps not. He didn't look away. But you're at my table now. That makes you my concern. Something in his tone made me shiver. Not fear exactly. Something more complicated. Something that felt like standing too close to a fire. Dangerous, but warm. Why? I asked. Why do you care? For a long moment, he didn't answer. Just studied me with those impossibly dark eyes, like he was solving an equation only he could see. Because you're afraid, he said finally, and you're trying very hard not to show it. Because you don't belong here, but you're too proud to run. Because... He paused, something flickering across his face. Because the moment I walked in and saw you sitting here, looking like a frightened dove in a room full of wolves, I knew. Knew what? His smile this time was real, and it was terrifying. That you were mine. The words hung in the air between us, impossible and absolute. Before I could respond, before I could process what he'd just said, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. Excuse me for a moment. He stood, and one of the guards immediately stepped closer. They moved away toward the private entrance, heads bent in urgent conversation. I sat frozen, my hands trembling in my lap. That you were mine. What did that even mean? This was insane. I should leave. Should grab my purse and walk out and never look back. But I didn't move. The waiter returned with wine, something red and probably older than me, and began setting up our courses, scallops that looked like art. Bread that smelled like heaven. Each plate was more beautiful than the last. I shouldn't eat this. Shouldn't accept anything from a man named Volkov, who traveled with armed guards and said things like, "You were mine," with such casual certainty. But God, I was so hungry, and so tired of being hungry. Damien returned a few minutes later, his expression unreadable. He sat down and gestured to the food. "Eat, Emma." I picked up my fork. The scallops melted on my tongue, butter and salt, and something divine. I tried not to moan. He watched me eat with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't, like my pleasure pleased him, like feeding me satisfied something primal in him. "Better?" he asked when I'd finished the appetizer. "Yes," I admitted. "Thank you." "You work 2 jobs. Again, not a question. I froze. "How did you—" "Your hands." He nodded toward them. "Rough from cleaning products, but you also have a name-tag tan line on your shirt from something you wore earlier today. And the way you looked at the prices—" He shrugged. "You're exhausted, underfed, and probably haven't had a night off in months." I should have been angry at his presumption. Instead, I felt naked, seen. "I do what I have to do," I said quietly. "And your date?" "Marcus. What does he do?" "I don't know. We'd never actually met before tonight. It was a blind date set up by a friend." Something dark crossed Damien's face. "You agreed to meet a stranger alone in an expensive restaurant. I was supposed to be safe here," I defended. "It's a public place and—" "Public means nothing." His voice dropped. "Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? How easily someone could—" He cut himself off, jaw clenching. "You don't know this, Marcus. Don't know his intentions, his connections, whether he's safe. And you're safe?" The words came out before I could stop them. His smile was razor sharp. "No, Emma, I'm not safe at all. But at least I'm honest about it." The main course arrived. Lamb so tender it fell off the bone. Vegetables that tasted like they'd been grown in heaven's garden. I tried to eat slowly, tried to maintain some dignity, but it was impossible. Real food, good food. After so long surviving on ramen and hope. "Why are you really here?" I asked between bites. "You obviously weren't expecting to find me at your table." "Business dinner," he said vaguely. "Someone who wanted to discuss partnerships. But he's not coming either." "How do you know?" His smile was cold. "Because 20 minutes ago, he learned what happens to people who waste my time." The temperature in our little corner seemed to drop 10 degrees. I set down my fork, my appetite suddenly vanishing. "What do you do, Damien?" I asked carefully. "For a living?" "I solve problems." He took a sip of wine, watching me over the rim of his glass. "And I collect things." "What kind of things?" "Beautiful things, rare things, things that don't know their own worth." His eyes never left mine, things that need protection. My heart was racing again, but for different reasons now. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to leave, to run, to get away from this man who looked at me like I was something to be acquired. But another part of me, a part I didn't recognize and didn't trust, wanted to stay. Wanted to know what it felt like to be protected instead of perpetually afraid. To be valuable to someone, even if that someone was dangerous. "I should go," I said, but I didn't move. "You should," he agreed, "but you won't." "Why not?" He set down his glass and leaned forward again, close enough that I could see gold flecks in those dark eyes. "Because you're curious. Because for the first time in years, you feel something other than tired. Because, you know—" He reached across the table, his fingers brushing my hand. The touch was electric. "That walking away from this table means going back to your life. Working yourself to death for people who don't appreciate you. Being invisible. Being alone. And staying means what?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Staying means letting me take care of you." His thumb traced small circles on my wrist, finding my racing pulse. Means accepting that you walked into my life tonight, sat at my table and became mine. Means understanding that I don't let go of what's mine, Emma. Ever. You're insane. But I didn't pull my hand away. Perhaps. He smiled. Or perhaps I simply know what I want when I see it. You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're strong enough to work yourself to exhaustion, but too proud to ask for help. I know you showed up tonight despite being terrified, because you're brave underneath all that fear. I know you deserve better than cheap dates and cheaper men who don't have the decency to show up. His grip on my wrist tightened just slightly. And I know that if I let you walk out of here tonight, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. The words should have sounded like a line, like manipulation, like every red flag relationship therapist warned about. But the way he said them, with such absolute certainty, such raw possession, made them feel like a promise or a threat. Maybe both. This is crazy, I breathed. Yes. He didn't deny it. But answer me this, Emma. If you leave right now, go back to your apartment, your 2 jobs, your exhaustion, will you regret it? Will you lie awake wondering what would have happened if you'd been brave enough to stay? I would. God help me, I would. The waiter appeared with dessert, something chocolate and sinful. Damien released my wrist, but his eyes never left my face. Eat your dessert, he commanded softly, and then decide. But know this. If you stay, if you let me take you home tonight, everything changes. Your life as you know it ends, and I won't apologize for that. My hands shook as I picked up the dessert spoon. The chocolate was rich and dark and tasted like temptation, like falling. Like the moment before you jump off a cliff and aren't sure if you'll fly or crash. I was still eating when his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, frowned, and stood. I need to handle something, he said. Sergei will stay with you. Don't leave this table. It wasn't a suggestion. One of the guards, Sergei apparently, moved closer, positioning himself between me and the rest of the restaurant. Damien left through the private entrance again, and I was alone with my chocolate and my churning thoughts, and a man built like a tank who was apparently now my babysitter. 10 minutes passed. 15. I'd finished the dessert and was contemplating my escape route when Damien returned. But something had changed. His expression was harder, colder. There was blood on his knuckles, just a spot, but unmistakable. He sat down and picked up his napkin, wiping his hands clean with casual efficiency. What happened? I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Nothing you need to worry about. He signaled the waiter for the check. Your Marcus showed up. He had to be discouraged from waiting for you. Ice flooded my veins. What did you do? Send him home with a message about respecting people's time. His smile was pleasant and absolutely terrifying. He won't be bothering you again. You had no right. I had every right. He leaned forward, and suddenly, he wasn't the charming dinner companion anymore. He was something else entirely, something predatory and possessive, and utterly uncompromising. You're under my protection now, Emma. That means men who disrespect you answer to me. That means anyone who hurts you, threatens you, or even looks at you wrong, will learn very quickly why people fear my name. People fear your name? I repeated weakly. They should. He stood, extending his hand. Come, we're leaving. I haven't agreed to anything. You stayed. His eyes glittered. You ate my food, drank my wine, sat at my table for over an hour. In my world, that's agreement enough. Now you can walk out with me willingly, or I can carry you. But either way, Emma, you're coming home with me tonight. This is kidnapping, I whispered. This is protection. He pulled me to my feet with surprising gentleness. The world is dangerous, especially for beautiful women who sit at wrong tables and catch the attention of dangerous men. Lucky for you, I'm the most dangerous man in this city, which means nobody else will dare touch you. He was insane. Clearly, completely insane. And I was insane too, because instead of screaming or running or calling for help, I let him guide me toward that private entrance, his hand warm and possessive on the small of my back. The restaurant blurred around us. The other guard fell into step behind us. We moved through a service corridor and out into an underground parking garage where a black SUV waited, engine running. Mr. Volkov, the driver said, opening the rear door. Damien helped me inside. No, not helped. Placed me, like I was something precious and breakable that needed to be handled with care. He slid in beside me, close enough that our thighs touched. The door closed. The locks clicked with a finality that made my pulse spike. "Where are you taking me?" I asked, as the SUV pulled out into the night. "Somewhere safe." His hand found mine in the darkness, fingers intertwining. "Somewhere no one can hurt you. Somewhere you'll never have to work yourself to death again." "I don't understand what's happening." "I know." He raised my hand to his lips, kissed my knuckles with devastating gentleness. "But you will. And by the time you do, Emma, it will be too late to run. You'll already be mine in every way that matters." The city lights streaked past the tinted windows. I should have been terrified, should have been fighting, screaming, demanding to be let out, but all I felt was a strange, breathless anticipation, like standing on the edge of a precipice, looking down into darkness, and realizing that falling might feel like flying. Damien's thumb traced patterns on my palm, each touch sending sparks up my arm. "Sleep if you can," he murmured. "It's a long drive, and tomorrow, your new life begins." I closed my eyes, my head falling against his shoulder before I could stop myself. He stiffened for a moment, then relaxed, his arm coming around me in a gesture that was both protective and possessive. This was insane. Impossible. Wrong in every way. But as the SUV carried us deeper into the night, toward a future I couldn't imagine and probably shouldn't want, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt wanted, claimed, mine. Even if I didn't fully understand yet what that meant, or what price I'd have to pay for it, I woke to silk sheets and confusion. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. The bed beneath me was too soft, the pillows too plush. The air smelled like expensive fabric softener instead of the mildew that perpetually clung to my apartment. Sunlight filtered through curtains that probably cost more than my security deposit, casting everything in a golden glow that felt unreal. Then it all came rushing back. The restaurant. The wrong table. Damien. I sat up too quickly, my heart hammering. The room around me was massive, bigger than my entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed a view of the city I'd never seen before, high enough that we had to be at least 20 floors up. The furniture was modern and minimalist, all clean lines and neutral colors. A door to my left stood slightly ajar, revealing marble and chrome that had to be a bathroom. I was still wearing my cheap dress from last night, now wrinkled and uncomfortable. My shoes sat neatly by the bed, placed there by someone who wasn't me. Panic crawled up my throat. What had I done? I'd gotten into a car with a stranger. No, not a stranger. Something worse. A man whose last name made waiters bow and whose knuckles had been bloodied, and who'd said people feared him like it was a simple fact. I scrambled out of bed, my feet sinking into carpet so thick it felt like walking on clouds. I needed to leave. Needed to get out before. The door opened. A woman entered, middle-aged and elegant in a crisp black uniform. She carried a tray with coffee and what looked like breakfast, her expression professionally neutral. "Good morning, Miss Richards," she said in accented English. "Mr. Volkov asked me to bring you breakfast. He apologizes for not being here when you woke. He had business to attend to." I stared at her. "Who are you?" "I'm Elena, the house manager." She set the tray on a table near the window. "Mr. Volkov has arranged for some clothes to be brought up. They should arrive within the hour. In the meantime, the bathroom is fully stocked with everything you might need." "I need to leave," I said, my voice shaking. "I need to go home." Elena's expression softened slightly. "Mr. Volkov anticipated you might feel that way. He asked me to give you this." She pulled an envelope from her pocket and handed it to me. Inside was a note in bold, masculine handwriting. "Don't run, Emma. We need to talk. I'll be back by noon. Everything you need has been provided. D." And beneath it, my apartment keys. My stomach dropped. "He took my keys?" "For your safety," Elena said carefully. "Your building isn't secure, Mr. Volkov had your locks changed this morning and posted security at your door. Your roommate has been informed that you're safe and will explain the situation when you're ready. This couldn't be happening. This was insane. I'd been here less than 12 hours and he'd already taken over my life. changed my locks, invaded my privacy. He had no right, I whispered. Elena didn't respond to that. Instead, she gestured to the breakfast. Please eat, Miss Richards. You'll feel better with food in your stomach. She left before I could argue, the door closing with a soft click. I stood in the middle of that enormous room, my hands shaking, trying to process what was happening. He'd kidnapped me. That's what this was. Dressed it up in silk sheets and expensive breakfast, but it was still kidnapping. I should call the police, should scream, should do something other than stand here feeling strangely cared for. The coffee smelled incredible. My stomach growled, reminding me that the chocolate dessert last night was the only real meal I'd had in days. The tray held eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, pastries that looked like they came from a bakery that charged by the vowel. I sat down and ate, because I was too hungry not to. Because maybe on a full stomach I could think clearly, could figure out how to escape this golden cage. The eggs were perfect. The coffee was heaven. Everything tasted like it had been prepared by someone who actually knew what they were doing, unlike the burnt toast and instant coffee that comprised my usual breakfast. I was halfway through a croissant when the door opened again. Not Elena this time. Damien. He looked different in daylight, still devastatingly handsome, but somehow more real. His suit was different from last night. Charcoal gray this time, perfectly tailored. His hair was slightly damp like he'd recently showered. He carried himself with that same predatory grace, but there was something else in his eyes as they found me. Something almost uncertain. "You're eating," he said, and he sounded relieved. "Good." "You changed my locks." I set down the croissant, my appetite vanishing. "You went to my apartment without my permission and changed my locks. I also paid your rent for the next 6 months and settled your credit card debts." He moved further into the room, closing the door behind him. "Your landlord was happy to accept my offer." The room spun. "My debts? How did you even—" "I have resources, Emma, and I use them to protect what's mine." "I'm not yours." The words came out too loud, too desperate. "You can't just decide that and expect me to go along with it, can't I?" He moved closer, each step deliberate. "You're here, aren't you? You ate my food, slept in my bed, accepted my protection. At what point does it stop being kidnapping and start being salvation?" I stood, backing away from him until I hit the window. "This is insane. You're insane. I don't even know you. Then let me tell you." He stopped a few feet away, giving me space, but not enough. Never enough. "My name is Damien Volkov. I'm 32 years old. I was born in Moscow but raised in a dozen different cities as my father built his empire. I speak 6 languages. I don't believe in God, but I believe in loyalty, in family, in protecting what belongs to me." His eyes burned into mine. "And you belong to me now, Emma. Whether you understand that yet or not, people don't belong to other people," I said. But my voice wavered. "In my world, they do." He pulled out his phone, tapped something, and held it out to me. "Do you know what your Marcus was planning to do last night?" I looked at the screen. It showed text messages, conversations about me, about the restaurant, about how I was an easy target and desperate enough to go along with anything, plans to drug my drink, to take me somewhere private, to... I stopped reading, bile rising in my throat. "He's part of a trafficking ring," Damien said quietly, pocketing his phone. "They target vulnerable women through dating apps, promise romance, and deliver hell. You would have disappeared last night, Emma, and no one would have looked very hard for a broke waitress with no family." The room tilted. I grabbed the window frame for support. "That's why I had your locks changed," he continued. "Why I posted guards. Why I'm not letting you go back to that life. Because now that you've been seen with me, now that I've claimed you, you're a target. My enemies will assume you mean something to me. They'll try to use you, hurt you, take you." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "And I will burn this city to the ground before I let that happen. So I'm a prisoner," I whispered. "No. You're protected." He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek with surprising gentleness. "There's a difference. I don't see one. Then let me show you." His thumb brushed my cheekbone. "Stay here today. Let me prove to you that this isn't a cage, that this is a sanctuary, that I can give you everything you've been denying yourself while you worked yourself to death for scraps. And if I still want to leave?" Something dark flickered in his eyes. "Then we'll discuss it. But give me today, Emma. One day to show you what your life could be." I should have said no. Should have demanded he take me home immediately, locks changed or not. But I looked into those dark eyes and saw something that terrified me more than his threats or his guards or his blood-stained knuckles. I saw certainty, absolute, unwavering certainty that I was his, and that he would never let me go. And God help me. Part of me wanted to surrender to it. "One day," I heard myself say. His smile was devastating. One day. He kept his distance for the rest of the morning, giving me space to shower and change into the clothes that arrived as promised. Designer labels I'd only seen in magazines. Everything in my exact size. I didn't want to think about how he knew my measurements. The bathroom was a dream. Heated marble floors, a shower with 6 different settings, products that smelled like luxury. I stood under the hot water until my skin was pink, trying to wash away the confusion and fear and strange, dangerous want that kept creeping in. When I emerged, wrapped in a towel that was softer than any clothing I owned, Elena was waiting with more options. Casual clothes, business wear, evening gowns. Everything I could possibly need. "Mr. Volkov wasn't sure of your style," she said apologetically. He erred on the side of variety. I chose jeans and a simple sweater. The most normal things I could find, though even these probably cost more than a week's wages. They fit perfectly, of course. Everything in this place was perfect, polished, designed to trap me in comfort. Damien found me in what he called the library, an entire room lined with books, leather chairs positioned by windows that showed that impossible view. I'd been staring at a first edition of something I'd only ever read in paperback, my fingers trembling at the thought of touching something so valuable. "You like to read," he said from the doorway. Not a question. He'd probably already researched every detail of my life. "When I have time," I said carefully. "Which isn't often. You'll have time now." He moved into the room and I noticed he'd changed too. Dark jeans, a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Less formal but somehow more dangerous, like seeing the predator without its civilized veneer. "Take whatever you want. All of this is yours now. Nothing here is mine," I corrected. "I'm just visiting." "Are you?" He picked up a book, turning it over in his hands. Hands that had been bloodied last night, protecting me from a threat I hadn't known existed. "Tell me, Emma, when was the last time you read a book just for pleasure? When did you last sleep past dawn because you could, not because you were too exhausted to wake up? When did you last eat a meal that didn't come from a microwave or a vending machine?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. "This isn't visiting," he said softly. "This is living. What you were doing before, that was surviving. Barely. I was managing," I said defensively. "You were dying." He set down the book and crossed to me, his presence overwhelming in the quiet room. Slowly, painfully, working yourself into an early grave. And for what? An apartment you can barely afford? A life where no one sees you, no one values you, no one cares if you disappear? That's not... It's exactly true. His hand caught my chin, forcing me to look at him. "I saw it last night, Emma, the way you flinched when the hostess looked at you. The way you tried to make yourself small, invisible, like you didn't deserve to take up space in that restaurant. The way you were surprised when I wanted you to stay. Tears burned behind my eyes. You don't understand. Then explain it to me." And maybe it was the gentleness in his voice, or the exhaustion finally catching up with me, or the fact that no one had asked me to explain anything in so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to be heard. But the words came tumbling out. I told him about my mother's death 3 years ago, about the medical bills that had buried me in debt, about losing my scholarship when I had to drop out of college to work, about the jobs that paid minimum wage and treated me like I was replaceable, because I was, about the men who'd promised romance and delivered disappointment, about the crushing, suffocating weight of being invisible in a world that only saw you if you had money or beauty or power. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When I finally ran out of words, he pulled me against his chest in a gesture that should have felt presumptuous, but somehow felt like coming home. "No one will make you feel invisible again," he murmured against my hair. "Not while I'm alive." I should have pulled away, should have maintained distance, boundaries, self-preservation. Instead, I let myself lean into him, just for a moment. Let myself feel what it was like to be held by someone who seemed genuinely upset on my behalf. "Why me?" I asked into his shirt. Why do you care?" He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "My mother was like you once, young, vulnerable, alone in a world that wanted to devour her. My father found her, claimed her, protected her. She fought him at first too, thought he was crazy, dangerous, wrong. Was he?" "Yes." I felt him smile against my hair, but he loved her with everything he had. Gave her a life of safety and luxury and power, and she gave him loyalty, family, a reason to be more than just a monster. "What happened to her?" "She died when I was 15, cancer." His arms tightened around me. "My father survived her by 6 months. Couldn't live without her. Some people say he let himself be killed because existing without her was worse than death." I pulled back to look at him. "That's intense. That's love." His eyes were fierce. "In my world, in my family, when we choose someone, it's absolute. Forever. No half measures. No walking away. My father taught me that the right woman is worth burning the world for, worth dying for, worth killing for." "And you think I'm that woman?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "I know you are." He cupped my face in both hands. "From the moment I saw you in that restaurant, looking lost and brave and so damn beautiful it hurt to breathe, I knew. You were meant to sit at my table, Emma. Meant to walk into my life and change everything." "That's not how it works," I protested weakly. "People don't just belong together because they sat at the wrong table, don't they?" He leaned closer, his lips nearly brushing mine. "You felt it too. That pull, that recognition. Like something in you knew something in me. And vice versa. I had felt it. Still felt it. This magnetic, terrifying connection that made no sense and defied all logic." "This is too fast," I whispered. "I know." He didn't move away. "But time doesn't matter when you're certain. And I am certain, Emma. About you, about us. About the fact that letting you walk away would be the biggest mistake of my life. What if I'm not certain? Then I'll wait." His thumb traced my lower lip, and I shivered. "I'll wait, and I'll prove myself. And I'll show you every day that you made the right choice by staying. But I won't let you go."